And tonight we are here for the very first installment of the Inlandia Books Roadshow. So, taking our books on the road. So Inlandia was founded in 2007, and our first few books that we published were co-published with another publishing house out of Berkeley, Heyday Books. And after a time, we discovered that there were books that we wanted to publish, but that were not in line with Heyday's mission. And so we started publishing books, and it started small, just with workshops, anthology, and it grew from there. And I'm really proud to say that now we publish between 10 and 12 authors a year. And between prizes, we have the Hilary Gravendike Prize for poetry. Two poets each year win the prize, and we have several of our prize winners here tonight. Yay! Yay. We also have an Inlandia Books imprint that has published many other wonderful books, from memoir to young adult adjacent fiction to actual, young adult to novels, and we're going to be publishing the debut novel of a 91-year-old in July. So, hey. So you are never too old to write a book, and you are never too young to start writing. So with that, I do want to go ahead and get us started. And we didn't determine a predetermined order, so I'm just going to decide who's going to go first. Are you all okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's start with Angelica Maria Barraza Tran. Woo! And she is the author of a Hilary Gravendike Prize-winning collection, How to Know You're Dreaming When You're Dreaming, Lesson 1. So come on up.
Yay.
Thanks, Katie. I'm very happy to be here. And I'm really excited to know that Inlandia headquarters is literally next door to a home that I spent so many pivotal, beautiful moments of my life. I'm going to read a short piece. I don't know how to describe it. Maybe it's flash fiction, maybe it's a prose poem, maybe it's neither. It's called Milagro, the Lion, and the Long Road Back. Past the plaza lined with paper lanterns, bulletins emblazoned with faces of missing women, and vendors hawking promises of syrupy joy. Past the famed church, a mini cathedral with life-size replications of Jesus and the devil flanking the pulpit, each gazing down at the congregants with exacting papier-mâché eyes. Get a Coke, the good kind, the kind made with sugar from La Garita, from the shop at the corner overlooking a lot of wilting asters. Promise the shop owner's daughter, a certain Milagro whom you've known since birth, who, prelingual, you gazed upon and first learned the word bloom, that you'll pay her for it later. Wink at her. Let the line between want and debt blur. This is, after all, your personal definition of an evening on fire. When you die, at some tragic hypothetical point in the future, a future so far removed from your waxing adolescence it can't yet come into focus, not in any sharp or meaningful way. You want people to circle your plot and share stories confirming you as both a lover and an entrepreneur. This is how you want your years to ripen, part numbers ombre, part warm wind coaxing unruly grasses. Borrow the rusted bicycle leaning against the old sandal maker's shop. Make sure to escape his notice, or he'll ask you about your dad. The two of them grew up together, but there's nothing new to report. A new report would require a relationship that is unimaginable from the one you two have now. a relationship of untold stories and long intervals of air. Ride the bicycle away from noise, away from the lanterns and missing women and vendors. Follow the opposite of light. Take a turn down a crude dirt road where wild dogs roam with wild abandon, where plastic bags and rainbow-colored wrappers catch in the arms of brittle trees. As you ride, fancy yourself a philosopher, a poet. Let your thoughts return and settle on the topic of death. Imagine all the ways a life can end, from the natural and expected to the dramatic and ill-timed. Pump your legs. Hypothesize the way you would want to go out if you could choose. Rule out any kind of suffering or any cause that could undermine the idea you have of yourself as one impervious to pain. Ride and ride, the landscape unfurling like a rare cereus bloom, opening to the moon once a year for a singular glorious evening before perishing. Oh, let it be something valiant, you think, something akin to legend. Let your death be something remarkable, a full page in the scrolls of history, Villa, Juarez, the brothers Flores Magón. You dream of this person you could be, worth more than what you've been conditioned to believe is possible. As the lingering remnants of sun and heat descend along the ridgeback of the Sierras, the human twilight clinging to your flushed, taut skin and collecting into rivulets of sweat. You pedal and pedal, completely unaware that death waits for no one, especially not poets. And that as you reach the furthest point down the road you're willing to go, and as you U-turn and head back to the town, the moon rising now, a pearlescent waxing gibbous, and return the bicycle to the sandal maker shop. Carlos, your dad's friend's name is Carlos. A cluster of angry, abnormal cells have taken root in an organ whose name you can't even spell and are already spreading into your lymph nodes. This night with Milagro, if you play your cards right, will lionize you. It will be one your mind returns to when you need it most. When years later, you've not only learned the organ's spelling, but have lost your voice cursing the organ's existence as if it were your rival and not a very real, very tender part of you. Oh, the coils of Milagro's black hair skimming your chest. Oh, the breathy direction she provides as your tongue roams the honeyed crux between her thighs. It will be a night you replay over and over in your head as the dream of money, of accumulation, loses its hold on you. As you shift restless in the sterile ward, muscles eroding, bones rising to the surface of your skin, as you shuffle from the bed, past the cards and balloons to the toilet, a journey that daily protracts and becomes more wretched. Not at all how you imagined your final months, though somehow no less brimming with wonder, filled as it is with the music of her moans echoing across time, leading you down a wholly different kind of road, perfect in its endlessness, with no promise of return set against a darkening skyline. Thanks.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much. And what Angelica was referring to is Inlandia's office is in a converted house that we are right next door to a house that is known as the Jackson Pollock House. And on the other side of that house is a house that she spent a lot of time in. So it's such a small world. Who knew that? But when you submitted to the contest, none of us. All right, so next I would like to invite up Will Barnes. Come on up, Will. All the way here from New Mexico.
Wow. Thanks, Katie. Let's see. My mom would tell me to take my hat off.
Do what you want.
Yeah, that's right. I'm so grateful to have met you all and to be part of this family, and it's really just an honor. You helped me make this book. You made this book, so
It's a beautiful book.
yeah, it really is.
I should have mentioned he's also one of the winners of the Hillary Reagan
Yay.
Oh,
And one of the great pleasures of that is getting to know Hillary Gravendyke's work, who was just a brilliant poet, and it's a tragedy that we've lost her. Her work is just phenomenal, so to be associated with her is it's a big honor. This is a love story, and it's a correspondence. It's about writing back and forth, and so there's two voices in it. And it doesn't work out so well. It does work out. It works out great. But love has its moments. It sort of follows the story of Artemis and Actaeon, which is a challenging story for Actaeon in particular. But I think what I'm going to do, trying to decide what to read, I'm going to read sort of the main love poem, and then I'm going to read some things from the end. So this is called The Lake, Only Water. You wait for me at the shore, curled up in the grass, thin as a moon wrapped in your towel. We paddle together to the dock and sit in the sun. The swallows come out. You slip into the lake and swim. Angular arms, sunlight flashing, easy, elemental. And then you change direction at right angles to yourself, crossing and recrossing your own wake, and I wonder if you were writing to the birds what you were trying to say. I love how the lake holds you. And there I am, in the late afternoon, in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of my life, watching you speak in some ritual language, the language of women, of birds, the language of water, as you pull yourself glittering up and out, laughing, and I cannot look away. So they write together. There's lots of this is back and forth language between them, and then she leaves, and he sort of falls apart. And I thought maybe I would read something from that. This whole section is kind of called the mirrors, and this is Summer's End. Each morning the swifts return from underground to feed their raucousness, to calibrate the sky. And more, it's noon all day. There was barking, yes, a distant rumble as in falling rock, and then the pause. Look how the skin folds, downward, splotchy, burnt like grease fire in the roof fields, escarpment scraped and breathless still. Who could be in there, furtive and scuffling? What, in God's name, could be in there, pining behind the sofa like that? Days and weeks I can't find you, though it rains. We died in a moonlit sky. The rocks cut through my ribs, our bones like little boats balanced on the ground, and the wind inside. We were told to wait for spring or something to melt, a color, a kind of rose. And then a dog appeared, stole my arm in his teeth. I could not move, I could not speak, till the seashells in my throat shook me awake, and the dog leapt with my humorous, racing downhill. You were your usual wraithful self, annoyed at my persistence, my endless decay. Ghost-like, twisting, you turned yourself to wend your way from out of me. I was cavernous then, face up into the rain. How lovely the blue of it felt on my head, my eyes open endlessly, my mouth a ruin, having eaten all there is. It gets better.
It's great. It's great.
He starts dreaming and sort of following the dreams, and the dreams are magic. This is called The Causes of Decay, and the title is from, there's a version of the I Ching by Carol Moog, I think, and it's a feminist version, and it's really cool, and you should look for it. But one of the hexagrams is called The Causes of Decay, and it's about the things that are obstacles in your life. curled up and by me, entwined, your legs drawn in, laughing like a bird, and the veil drawn over between. I want to be alone or with you, like eggshells or deceit, that outward face in. I remember so clearly 2 worlds. I was split in half and no one knew, or late now, snow moon, waiting and waiting. Gas cap, toothpaste, drive to the plains, walk, sleep, read, write, walk. Finally home. A tangle of women swim toward me swirling, the mysterious one leaving, returning. She is young and pretty and I want her. She asks to marry on the weekend and I say yes, excited because she is dressed in flowers and all will be well. But then I remember I am already married, and on the way to the church I'm late and I have to work. And I have to tell her, and I think about calling, but I think I should tell her in person. And I'm still trying to catch a yellow cab, or should I walk, or take a tram, or marry both? And what would she say, and what would she say? And the sky is blue, and dressed in white lace in the San Gabriel mission as in an old Spanish town like LA, because she is Catholic, and we must marry in the church of our mothers. The door to the house is ripped from its skin. Light streams into the foyer, across the tiles, reflected off the mirror, through the cracks on either side, unhinged. The wood is splintered, torn. I can't put it back. It won't close, won't lock. Tip to the jam, it won't fix, and the light pours out in sheets. I wake up thinking about sex with strangers. It's alienating. The sky is blue, the garden's thirsty, hot, centered like that. Pelvis to pelvis, how perfectly we fit. Lips in my mouth, the better to speak you with, my dear. Feel something, heat rising. I want to be inside. Pink salt dust clings to the crystal salt boat, a kind of desert on the glass, a perfect storm. Apples, avocados, cheese, pasta, scallions, blueberries, wine, Baudelaire. You hold the pencils like a knife twisting, drawing down toward your body, laying paint in long, sinuous lines. These are trees, a garden of trees, each slowly thickening, as if to carve the space between, as if the colors in their lanes slowly urging something from within, sculpting ribbons, sunlight, wind, Shiraz, bronze, sienna, then scarlet lake and crimson lake and deep vermilion, the edges of allure, what happens when you cross. We walk together side by side in a dark set of rooms, a hallway in an evening place, not a city, but chandeliered with noises in the walls, a catacomb, cut rock and shadowed to a gathering of names, pinned and yellow with voices. We are standing at the wall, choosing, and then you are leaving again, your long legs striding into the cobbled dark. A psalm of sedges, obtuse, dry spike, sun, loving, western, analog, clustered, mountain, woolly, needle leaf, little wing, water. Because of the war, we hide in the bed inside a wooden frame, buried under blankets. Stay low. You press against me, curl your hands into my back so that your narrow hips lock into mine and your skin waits still. I trace the length of your spine to the sacrum and think how oddly shaped you seem, how frail and human, that the skin and bones beneath are bent, singular, heading toward overuse, a kind of wear in the form, a triangular stone for making wishes. There, pressed into you toward the idea of you, how possibility still waits, even within this lurking disintegration. There is still light, as if from inside. You smile, dark blue skies bearing rain and the long blonde streamers and waves of the drop seat, like white caps on a sandy sea. I tell all my stories to the flame at the small of your back, in a circular script. Side by side, we are wrapped in leaves, lemon, butter, salt. I think I should stop there.
think you put us in a trance, Will. That was beautiful. Okay. Next, I would like to invite up Stephanie Barbé Hammer to regale us with her wit and charm and poetry, or whatever she's going to read tonight. Yeah, come on up. Pretend plumber. So, yes. You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Can we hold it up?
Yeah.
So, I'm going to say, I screwed up and I forgot to bring Stephanie's books. But if you want one, give me your name and number and we will make sure you get one. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Yeah.
Hey everybody, thanks so much for being here. Gosh, I love being at Beyond Baroque. I was first here like 10 years ago when I started publishing my poetry seriously, so it's just always fun to come back to my roots. So, Pretend Plumber is a comical adventure. It was published a few years ago that is about queer identity, immigration, who gets to be an American, and it's also, and it's something that I'm proud about, especially given what's going on with the war in Gaza and the genocide, it's also a book about how some young Jews in America are forming a completely new vision of what being Jewish is that is not wedded to Zionism. And the hero is one of those Jews. So I'm going to read just a little bit of the beginning so you get a sense for this person. The trouble below starts with the floor. Tommy and Sophia are cleaning our small but location-perfect Hancock Park, Los Angeles house when Tommy notices that a marble floor tile has come loose. He always notices stuff, Tommy does. He should have been an architect or a contractor or a subcontractor, but instead he has this job with Sophia cleaning rich people's houses, although we aren't rich. But it's true, my mom and dad have enough money to hire a husband and wife team to come and clean twice a week, and we have a cook some days. So yeah, I guess we're pretty rich if you think about it. I mean, relatively speaking. But Tommy says to me, because I'm the only person home and Aaliyah is cooking and can't speak English, so it comes down to me, because I'm not a maniac like my mother and father. A bit of an unfair designation. But what do you expect from an overly educated, mature, only child adolescent? Yes, I know I'm about to graduate from 8th grade, and I've had my bat mitzvah, and I'm turning 14 in July, and mazel tov, you are a woman. But really still, I'm just a kid, for God's sake, so give me a break. And anyway, the floor. What was I gonna say Tommy was gonna say? Right, here it is. Tommy says, Saracine. I know, I have a weird French name. Do you see that the floor tile is loose? No, I say. And then I say, yeah, maybe I noticed. Also, I have something called dyspraxia, which means I'm physically uncoordinated, have issues with organization, and have short-term memory problems, aka I don't remember things sometimes. Is this important? I say to Tommy, which sounds rude but isn't. Because one of the things I've learned from my therapist, Dr. Gregorian, is that I have to signal to people that they need to be really clear if they want me to remember something. One way to do that is to say, is this important? With the implication being, why? Please explain, which Tommy does. It means there's something wrong below, he says to me. Something is wrong, I almost tell him. Below the surface, there is a lot wrong. But instead I say, what do you mean? The pipes, he says. Oh, I say, that's for my mom and dad to deal with. But your parents aren't home right now, Saracine, says Tommy. So you'll need to tell them what I said. Will you remember? Of course I will, I say, which means I probably won't, because this information does not sound very important ultimately, and that means I'll probably file it away in the forget-me zone of neurodivergence, which a lot of famous people now claim to have, so that they can have an excuse for being disorganized. I'm about to sit back down and start up the Pan's Labyrinth movie when I realize that my friend Charleuse has been in the bathroom for quite a long time. So I go and knock on the door and I ask that classic question, which is, what happened? Did you fall in? I don't know why, but saying that very old joke always makes me laugh, and it usually makes Charleuse laugh. But this time, there is silence. I bang on the door again and repeat my all the time getting less droll question until finally Charleuse's voice says, I think you better look at this. I'm not sure I like that suggestion, coming from someone who's been sitting on the toilet for 15 minutes. But we are friends, deep friends, adopted sibling friends, because we've known each other since elementary school, and we both like to pretend and dress up and act things out, and Charleuse can really play guitar and sing. So I say, okay, and I turn the gold handle of our bathroom door and I walk in. Good news. Charleuse has his pants on and isn't sitting on or kneeling in front of the toilet. He's standing there and pointing to the bathtub. Bad news. The tub is filled with dirty water, sort of green, brown. Jesus, I say. He says, it's just there, bubbling up from below. Add to that a smell like rotten eggs and peeling paint and garbage, and well, not surprisingly, a bit like shit. Tommy comes in. That's what I'm talking about, he says. You need to call your parents. I don't want to call them. I love Mom and Dad, but these days I don't like them very much. I mean, stop talking about the Bible and paper mache and deal with the pipes, why don't you? And also, why aren't you guys ever home? When Dad, your law office is in Century City, and Mom, your art gallery is just down on Wilshire, and you don't even work full-time. I mean, I'm just asking. It's weird how your feelings about people change. Like when Charleuse told me last week that he had a feeling that he was really a girl, despite the fact that he has a penis and looks like a boy. He says his therapist says that lots of people make that decision to change their gender assignment. Can you even do that? Apparently the answer is yes. Actually, my feelings about Charleuse did change, but they changed for the better because I was so impressed by a 15-year-old biracial person who says, I'm a girl, and who insists to themselves and the world, I don't care what's down below. So I'm going to skip a little bit. She decides to decamp. Hey, I say, let's go to my grandpa's condo. Okay, says Charleuse, and he gets to work practicing walking in the new slingbacks that I've given him, while I rustle up the change for the Wilshire bus. That's one of the great things about Charleuse. He's very agreeable. I feel quite transformed in these shoes, he says to me. I put the change in my pocket and study him. He does look a bit different, maybe. Taller, of course, but also a bit more slender, delicate. Can you call me something else, he says. Charlene, I say. No, he says. Jackie. He does a very good twirl and stops very close to me. And you are my father because you have made me into someone else. Okay, my son, let's call Grandpa. Child, Charleuse says. Now, Jackie, and you need to use different pronouns. I call my grandfather and tell him we're coming over. So we're all set to go. The doorbell rings. I answer because I figure it's another foreign language person that's been coming in here, or maybe the FedEx delivery person with my How Everything Works encyclopedia, but it's not. It's Grandma, standing there in her Zumba TM exercise clothes, and man, is she pissed up. So it'll turn out that Grandma is a Kabbalist with possible magical powers, and Saracen is abducted to a dysfunctional Jewish summer camp for wayward youth, where now as Sam, he plans to escape with 5 other campers. And I hope you'll check out the book. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stephanie. And for those who are relatively local, there are some familiar places in Southern California that pop up in the book, so check it out. All right, next I would like to invite up Ellen Estilai. All right, come on up, Ellen, author of the memoir Exit Prohibited.
Oh, so wonderful to be here. Thank you so much. This book, Exit Prohibited, is a memoir about our time in Iran, my time in Iran. I'm married to an Iranian, my husband Ali, and we lived there from 1971 to 1980, and it was a period of great social change. So the book is about a little bit about all that, you know, the run up to the Iranian Revolution, and it's about my trying to really become part of my adopted culture, but also the through line to the book, the kind of organizing narrative, is about a day in July 29th, 1980, when we were all going to go back to the States. We had decided that after a year living under the Islamic Republic, we decided it was time to go. They had instituted hijab for women working in government offices, and we said, okay, that's the line in the sand for us. So we get to the airport, and my husband is not able to leave with us, and we don't know why. So I spent the next few months trying to figure out what it was that we had overlooked. How did this suddenly happen to us? And we didn't see it coming. We really didn't see it coming. So this is one of those chapters that I'm going to read to you. It's called Wind Catchers, Flag Catchers, Tehran, 1977 to 1978. In late 1977, almost 2 years before the Iranian Revolution, I completed my master's degree in English literature at Tehran University. A few months later, I was hired at the Tehran Museum of Contemporary Art as a manager of education services. The museum, a project of Empress Farah, had opened a month or so earlier to great fanfare, both for its exquisite architecture and for its spectacular collection of European, American, and Iranian modern art. It soon became a new center for contemporary Iranian artists, but what some welcomed as progress, others saw as a threat. The Empress had hired her cousin, architect Kamran Diba, to design the building, which abounded with references to traditional Persian architectural forms, especially the badgirs, or wind catcher. Traditional badgirs, which I had seen in the desert town of Yazd, channeled breezes down into the house where they were cooled by an indoor pool. But here they were transformed into light catchers that helped illuminate the galleries. A central ramp of gleaming, polished concrete wound down through the center of the museum and ended in a lower-level atrium with a hose, a rectangular reflecting pool, not of water, but of oil. Diba had commissioned the black pool, Matter and Mind, by Japanese architect Noriyuki Haraguchi for the new museum, in an obvious reference not only to the hose of traditional Iranian architecture, but also to the oil that fueled Iran's economy and ultimately funded the museum. David Galloway, the museum's first curator, was an American art critic based in Germany and who had been tapped by the Empress to help build the museum's collection and organize major shows of European and American art. The Empress charged Americans Galloway and Donnerstein, as well as Diba, who was also the museum's first director, with amassing what would become the largest collection of 19th and 20th century Western art outside the West, with impressive works representative of the major art movements. The museum's 5,000 square meters also afforded generous space to Iranian artists. But while the architecture was informed by traditional Iran, the collection was predominantly Western. I loved working in that building with its spiraling rhythm, its light, its energy. Each day I walked up and down the winding ramp, making friends with the Van Goghs and Giacomettis and Picassos and Warhols. I took restorative breaks in the galleries or wandered in the sculpture garden outside my office window. I felt lucky to work in a museum where two cultures coexisted so amicably. or so I thought. I answered a phone call one day from an Iranian woman who wanted some information about current exhibits. Before hanging up, she asked me, "Is this museum for foreigners?" "Not at all," I assured her. "It's for Iranians. Manzil Khodetun. This is your house." The museum did belong to the people, but in reality it housed two cultures side by side. It was not just a matter of Iranian artists sharing space on the walls with their European and American counterparts. It was also the museum's Western-educated administrative staff and curatorial staff working among the more traditional and religious support staff. Soon I would see that, for those in the latter group, the museum, in its current form, would never be their house. In the early summer of 1978, I was helping organize a reception at the museum that would feature the Danish ambassador. As did all our receptions, this one would include alcohol. In fact, beer and wine had always been available in the museum's cafeteria. Weeks before the event, I made sure that the two women who worked in the cafeteria would be on hand to help serve at the reception. But just a few hours before the guests were to arrive, one of these ladies asked to speak to me. "Khanım Estilai," she whispered, nervously adjusting her headscarf. "I'm willing to work tonight, but I can't serve alcohol." "Why not?" I asked. "My son has forbidden it." "I don't understand," I said. "You've been serving beer and wine in the cafeteria all these months." "Yes, I know, but my son won't let me do it anymore. And my friend won't be serving alcohol either." I looked over at her friend, also wearing a headscarf, standing off to the side watching the exchange. Both women were polite and respectful as always, but now they were displaying a newfound power and resolve. Clearly, in their minds, they had just scored a small victory for Islam over the infidels at the museum. I knew that it was pointless to argue with them. No reasoning about the lateness of the hour would dissuade them from upholding their Islamic principles. I thanked them for letting me know their position and quickly set about finding others to take their places. This defection had caught me off guard. I could no longer assume a benign disinterest on the part of the janitors, guards, and support staff. They were watching and judging and making choices. Suddenly, I saw the museum from their perspective. The provocative images, the bee-hijab female employees, the nodding to architectural traditions while dismissing others. A place seemingly at odds with their values and culture. My temporary staffing problems would soon prove to be a harbinger of more dissatisfaction to come. A few weeks later, another event occurred that made me see just how myopic we all had been. Sometime in 1978, before he returned to Germany, David Galloway had produced a rich and innovative catalog to accompany a large show of cutting-edge contemporary art, the Book of the Art of Artists books. Hundreds of copies of the thick catalog were produced in Germany at considerable expense. Shortly after the catalogs arrived, my boss, an American in his mid-50s, burst into my office, red-faced, frenetic, and brandishing a mat knife. "Where's your copy of the new catalog?" he demanded. "Oh, it's not here. I took it home to read." "Well, I need it back, now." "Okay, but why?" "Just look," he said, as he opened his copy and thrust it in my face. I stared at it for a second, horrified, and then burst out laughing. There in the middle of the book, low on the page near the inner margin, was a small black and white photograph of two men engaging in oral sex. "Whose idea was this?" I said. "What were they thinking?" "I don't know," he replied, "but I need to cut out all these pages, hundreds of them." He snatched back his copy and, clutching his mat knife, disappeared in search of the rest of the offending pages. I didn't know if the photo was the choice of Galloway or his graphic designer, whether the curator had seen it, or if it was simply someone else's last-minute addition to the layout. But clearly, its inclusion indicated someone's ignorance of the prevailing mores of the country, or at least an inability to understand that these mores were relevant to this museum. Outside of a small group of avant-garde intellectuals and aesthetes in major international centers of art, where would this catalog photograph have been acceptable? Most likely not in many government-sponsored museums around the world, and certainly not in Iran. The public never saw the offending page, but as it turned out, there was still much in the museum that wasn't acceptable to a growing number of dissatisfied and disaffected Iranians. Later that fall, one of the museum staff found a note stuck in the frame of Tom Wesselman's Great American Nude, a painting of a big, blousy blonde whose most predominant feature was bright pink nipples. The note said, "Next time, this will be a bomb." Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen.
Yes, another land, but I don't know how far afield it is from the world we're living in today. So, thank you, Ellen, again. And next, I would like to invite up, our next two authors are both this year's winners of the Hilary Gravendike Prize. So, I would first like to bring up Elizabeth Galoozis. So, come on up.
So thank you, Katie. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you, Beyond Baroque. This is actually my first time here. I usually watch online. So my book just came out this week. It's called Law of the Letter, and it's a first book, and I'm 41, so it covers a lot of ground. But it's mostly about it's very basic, but language and having the language to describe yourself in different experiences. That way the language is used to distort. So I tried to pick some poems that sort of reflect that idea. And so the first one I'm going to read is, the title is pretty self-explanatory. It's called The First Time I Was Depressed. One towel covering me, another beneath. Neon terry warming from the climbing sun. I'm sinking into the rock, my cheek pressed to it. One ear receives the thrum of the earth, the other splashes and laughter. We rode to an island unsupervised, jumping topless into the lake. I am too heavy for it. I don't want to die or live. The hours are as mute as I am. What is there to be sad about? I am a volcanic stone, something to leap from, rest beside, drape your bathing suit over. I don't want to move or stay. My friends don't question or worry me. When the sun begins sinking, they use their weight to lift me, warm and strong. All right, I think I'm gonna keep down and then we'll go up. So I have a lot of the poems in this book were written during the pandemic. And so a lot of them take place during the pandemic, which I guess is sort of a content warning. And this one takes place in Inland Empire, in Inlandia, and it's called Have Yourself. Christmas Eve at the Stater Brothers on Foothill. In the year of our Lord, it is still 2020. I am trying to remember the ingredients for a simple recipe, which I could search for on the computer in my pocket, but I can't admit one more unknowable thing. I must know without looking what I need, where to find it, how to get back to the house I have lived in for 2 days. I've been in here too long already. A lone man sways in the liquor aisle, breathing damply out his uncovered nose. Over the speaker, the worst versions of the worst Christmas songs. I can't place the generic voices. At checkout, my face trembles. I try to focus on the tender push of blood out the heart. In the slick, dark parking lot, a delivery truck crosses my path slowly, gives me plenty of time to read the name of my best friend painted inexplicably on its side. Behind the wheel, I sob from the chest. I want my mother. I want to touch a person. I want the followers of Jesus to protect the rest of us as we protect them. I want to know when I will know again, when the moment will arrive when I can once again let my heart be light. Okay, so here's another local interest poem, which I wrote, I think on the visit that I came to LA to look for a place before I moved here 11 years ago, and went to a place that sounded like it was full of trees called The Grove. So if you don't know, it's a mall. So this is about that. It's called The Grove. A thick, slow crowd oozing out and in the openings, pulled by gleam and split by artificial branches. Everything relentlessly tasteful and shiny. The fountains drown the sounds of birds, our quiet conversation, all please and thank yous. We wanted to come here knowing only the name. A grove with only trees and cages. A farmer's market with no farmers. Laden and lonely under the fluorescence, reflected in 100 makeup mirrors, our energies sapped. The gleaming trolley takes us the half mile we can't seem to walk. Buy something. Shell out because we're far from home. Everyone is. It takes 10 minutes to get to a street with traffic, the actual smell of oil. Okay. There's some things that you don't think about when you move in with someone, like maybe you want quiet when you're going to sleep, or maybe you want the TV on, and maybe you both think different things. And so this poem is about that. It's called My Wife Falls Asleep to Friends, and it streams all night. And I'm left awake to decide when to meet the timeline. Maybe the one where they swap apartments of radically different shape and quality in the same building. Or the one where everyone has a good laugh about how silly Phoebe is to follow her mother's advice when the woman killed herself. LOL. The next morning, Monica and Chandler may be married, but that night they will still be arguing about the wedding. The next morning, Rachel's teeth are blinding in their fabricated uniformity, but that night they soften into the mouth of a common person. All the jokes that unwound silently over us as we slept recursively find their sound the next evening. Joey tries wearing women's underwear, but stops because it makes him seem gay. Chandler enjoys watching red carpets, but hides it because it makes him seem gay. Ross curls himself around Joey in a nap, and everyone runs to see for themselves because it makes them seem gay. Kathleen Turner shows up as Chandler's drag queen dad, and everyone loses their minds. Every 25 minutes, they are 25 again, splashing around in a fountain on the Warner Brothers lot, dancing according to their archetypes, 20 times a night and forever. How am I doing? About 5 more minutes?
Yeah.
2 more. Okay, all right. Okay, so, but I'm gonna read this one because my friend Catherine is here, who's also a librarian. I work as a librarian, and there is a quote in this poem from Charles Lummis. So if you've read The Library Book by Susan Orlean, he was the director of the LA Public Library, and he was fired for just basically being drunk all the time. So there's a quote from him in there. And then there's also an epigraph. So libraries are a feminized female profession, but they're often run by men, and Melville Dewey especially thought women should be librarians because they had good handwriting, yeah. So it's called Pass Me the Ladder, and the epigraph is a quote from Library Journal, which is a library and trade magazine in 1976, by Kathleen Weibel, and it's this: feminism further calls for a transformation of our concepts of power, compassion and support rather than aggression and dominance. Can I help you? I'm sorry The man in charge is unavailable. He's always unavailable in some form or another. You will find the books about you under sexual minorities. I can help you. Let us build knowledge together. Here's the quote. Quote, you will remember I was not a sweet girl graduate of library school, unquote. I am never allowed to forget. The men in charge call themselves information scientists, control uncontrollable ideas and feelings like depression, like of wages. Like how we are handmaidens not only to historians, but to our peers, flirting with students and churning out books of their own. Honestly, fuck right off. You can't build monuments when you're pulling at seams. This place may not be of my own making, but by Jessamine West and Audre Lorde, I can smash its walls, lean my ladder on your fist. Okay, that's one more. Okay. All right, so what, I once got a rejection from an editor that was like, your voice is mature yet spiteful, and I think that encapsulates that. All right, so I'm gonna end with the title poem, which is the first poem in the book, Law of the Letter, and it's an abecedarian, so the first line starts with A, the second with B, so on, but there is no Z lines. That's maybe important to know. Law of the letter. Asking questions got me yelled at. Better, I learned not to know the secret, but to know it existed. Catch the sound of whispers, but not their shapes. Don't be shitty, Dad said to me when I thought I'd make a joke. Eggshells hid under the carpet. I thought it was funny. 4th grade, I went to the state spelling bee, got tripped up on a word I knew I can never forget, sachet. How cocky I must have become, I thought later, to rush through such a familiar word. Talk about a joke. To be ditched by the only dependable knowledge, the order of letters so confirmable. Letters have always soothed me when my parents couldn't. No words that can't be put into order. I loved taking names from the phone book to alphabetize them, finding the rare ones beginning with Q. Even now when I need to sleep or steady myself, I run through the alphabet, listing cities, poets, flowers, skeleton elements, sacred places, systems of belief, anything that can be put into order. The words in their places, unadulterated by silenced or secret meanings. Visualize their shapes in sensed order, a skill no one wants anymore. There's spell check. There's sorting column X, A to Z. There are sentences I can write now. You don't have to own the spelling bee. You didn't deserve to be yelled at. You don't have to finish the list.
Excellent advice. You don't have to finish the list. Thank you, Elizabeth. So next I want to bring up Jennifer MacKenzie, and she's here all the way from New York. Wow. So come on up, Jennifer.
Hi everyone. It's such an honor to be here. I'm going to take my glasses off so I can see the pages in front of me. So you're going to be lovely glowing blurs. And I just want to say thank you so much to Inlandia for making this beautiful book. I just got my hands on it this weekend, and it also is about art markets, borders, empires, plunder, and the way that beauty becomes a commodity and also a kind of contraband within war economies. And so this is the last third of it is called Snowscapes from the Sackler Wing, which is what the Egyptian wing of the Metropolitan Museum of Art used to be called till pretty recently. And yeah, so I'm going to read I'm going to go back and forth between New York and countries that were targeted by the War on Terror. So this is Washington crossing the Delaware, and if you know that painting. Because it was sung, it was carried, but how it was kept, I don't know. The question side of things, undressing love that's been squelched by the realm. I want to sing it with you, a little drunk, and telling only what we feel like, dapper and huge with mirth, under the orange trees, so that your eye can just flow across it. The circus where emperors kept the plebes entertained and docile, with simple panels of marble and periphery, and windows made with translucent alabaster screens. Leonardo's CV. I am the best builder of war machines. I've built this 6-story siege engine and this hydraulic thing. I just need to do some naked portraits, and the helicopters will come together. Then the Americans in quiet triumph came to measure everyone as a single unit of production. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a piece of missile. There were bigger pieces, but we gave them to human rights organizations. I still have to believe in something to put on clothes, so today it's the casual beauty of the Upper East Side in April. Little sidewalk jewelry boxes of live color. I lay down my sword and shield for a second to love the petals. We Visigoths worrying which statues not to torch. Of course it was a garden surrounded by gunfire. You say, usually battle paintings are boring, but this one takes war and makes it this beautiful pink thing. He has the emigrant's affection for America before he even got here. Some polar ship, some Antarctic expedition that went wrong. It also has this confusion because he wants to portray them as these humble rebels, but they extend to every edge of the horizon. We're all raggedy volunteers, but we're gonna rule the world. The opaline icebergs litter the strait like so many treacherous insurgencies to string along. The West made a lot of noise, so that was like, what the fuck? You know what you're doing. I had been this very sweet child who cried if anyone spoke harshly to me, and then I wanted to kill Mitterrand, like personally kill him. And then I had that thought about a lot of people for a long time. A little operetta of the self. I refuse everything. Trauma is here, but also flowers, so I feel perfect. Let's not be real, just as a precaution. So the muse of this book is named Eva. I'm going to read just another, maybe 1 or 2 more poems there. So this is the first poem in the last series, which is Snowscapes from the Sackler Wing. If I'm not hostile, what am I? Existential hollow, $4 trillion just vanished from the markets. Oldest fathers on Wikipedia is appalling. Okay guys, so obviously we can't look to you for self-regulation. Eva fretting at the Austrian cafe about the closeness of the tables, the possibility of contagion. If I'm not hostile, then I fear Janet's dismissive eye roll. Janet was my therapist. You want to use her as Satan. You want to use her as the adversary. We've confused the Greek Diablo with the Hebrew Shaitan. Judaism couldn't leave space for such a powerful person. Satan shows up to solve theodicy, but then you get the problem, why the fuck did you create Satan? How do I deal with a person who is willful when I hide my will? By deal with, I mean love. By love, I mean how do I guarantee you won't destroy me? The more dualistic a religion is, the more it seeks to purify. When the infidels delayed our victory, why only when your enemy says it's true do you believe it? Your ideal of being a stone contains a deep russet wheel and folds. Some people can live with a paradox. So I thought I'd read this one. This is set in Lebanon, but it feels like it could be a California poem as well because it's about water rights and scarcity and the expropriation of land. So this is called Postcard from the Latest Unfinished Dam. In America, you're only allowed to be super positive in a cheerleady way that grew out of creating and feeding addictions. It's endless lack, and you're an afterthought, a pair of feet attached to legs. By the azure swimming hole, it smelled of cottonwoods, the air lipping and cooling, the banana leaves wagging, the rest of the water siphoned off for some tourist project upstream. Exchange rate porn, as their currency slides rapidly downward against our very strong dollar. Here come the villas filching water and turning the peaks lion-colored. A is not worried about war. It will be a small one, he says, not long, and won't affect the real estate. Instead of fate, Americans have numbers. When I try to make space in my thoughts for fate, I feel split-selfed, schizophrenic. I miss your wide, sharp mind. M said your voice was Translations for this vocal quality include throaty, husky, hoarse, abraded by a gulf of light. I kiss you a million kisses, drowning in flags of wine. I'm eating so much, I'm growing a small belly. And now I am all smooth. You'll laugh at me, but I love this baby rooster. I am our factotum, and I will have to go back. It is exactly 7 a.m. in Damascus. Okay, and then, yeah, I'm going to read a couple more from Lebanon and about art and borders and empire. And this is for Nawal Alali. And I don't speak French, but she does, so you're going to hear my bad French accent quoting her. Good one. Le Deluge. Do you sing? Anne asks after hours of talking about war. She makes us a perfect miniature breakfast. Half a cucumber, half a tomato sliced, 1 egg in a cup. I hack at the soft egg with a knife and ask for salt. Anne has become a mythical sex object by living alone with asthma and diabetes and writing articles and poems. This provokes men she doesn't know to swear to other men she does that she propositioned them and they fucked her. Show me the message, she writes, and the message isn't shown. Conspiracies are a kind of salve for wounds outsourced to other selves. Why else does she sit alone if she doesn't want me to approach her? Anne explains the origins of Bosch's oeuvre. Each day he passed through a market near his house. Drunks, whores, merchants, and from this stroll got his visions of minute shattered hells. In her articles, Anne is in 10 cities a day with 10 pseudonyms because the editor is too cheap to hire another writer. Labiba in Morocco, Noor in Paris. Anne wants to write a novel about the suffering of her 2 small dogs. It starts when she dies in the streets. What do you die from? I ask. Who knows, she says. She forgets the English for le deluge. I tell her about the stranger next to me on the plane who gave me his plush blanket and said he stopped talking about the war he fled because God and the devils and the angels and the moon have heard about this war. Yes, it's like clonage, and says. It makes everything fake. In the hells Bosch painted, all the devils are wearing his face. Thank you.
Oh man, that was so incredible. Thank you all for being here. Thank you to our writers and congratulations to our poets, and a collective sigh at the end of a long weekend, and a thank you to those who drove long distances just to be here today. So can we give ourselves another round of applause? And we do have books in the lobby, and I hope that you will peruse them and pick some up. And if you wouldn't mind, writers, I would love for you to come up to the front and we'll take a group photo.
Of writers. Okay.
Alright, cool. No, love it. 1, 2, and 3. Alright, one more. 1, 2, and 3. Great.